This is Shuja Rabbani, and you are listening to the Pod Your Heart Out podcast. I believe that the right to work in a safe and healthy work environment is everyone's human right. A workplace where there is humanity in human resources and a place where leadership leads by example. Join me in today's conversation if you see yourself as an advocate for that kind of workplace. In today's episode, I'm going to speak to you specifically about the 120% increase in female employees in Saudi Arabia's industrial sector. Now, this is an incredible news coming out of a region or a country actually specifically, which has been historically known to be not very, I guess, agreeable to women's participation in the society, if I can put it lightly. And when there is good news coming out of a country like that, I think it's important that we all celebrate. So this article, which was published in Arab News back in December of 2020, it stated that there is a huge increase in comparison to the last round of study that was conducted to see how many women were working in the industrial sector in Saudi Arabia. And there is a 120% increase as of March of 2020. Now, I am recording this in 2021, so of course by now it's probably increased a lot more. What's interesting to know is that when it comes to equitable distribution of work across genders and giving people, men and women equal opportunity in the workforce, especially in countries which have historically not been very open to women's participation in the workforce, it's incredible that in order for that to happen and really take off at this level, you really need to make an intentional effort. And there has to be a very specific targeted, attempt and drive into making sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion really is the top priority. It's interesting because this article states that this is part of the Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 goals. It's one of the Vision 2030 goals, which is great. When I read this part of this article, it actually reminded me of the 2018 Leadership Conference of John C. Maxwell in the US. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with John C. Maxwell, he is, of course, one of the leading authorities on leadership, and he holds conferences on leadership twice a year. This is based on his leadership program, and I had enrolled in John's program quite some time back. But in 2018, it was my first conference that I had attended live, and he mentioned that John and his team members, his entire faculty members, were invited to Saudi Arabia by the Saudi government to train the Saudi government on his values-based leadership program, which is what John Maxwell is known for all over the world. When you read his books, everything that he ever writes, it's all values-based leadership. And it's incredible how visions like this, when it comes to having for example, in this case, a 2030 vision, somewhere down the line, the leadership, it all starts with leadership. This is what John always says. This is his entire philosophy, that everything rises and falls on leadership. So the leadership of the country had made an intentional effort to make sure that women start participating in the workforce. And this is an incredible increase. So for my listeners who are working in the field of human resources or who have ever been engaged in any kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or specifically gender equity initiatives that were the driving factor to increase the participation of women in the workforce or in their respective companies. If you have ever been involved in any kind of project like that, I would love to hear from you, because it's interesting to hear other people's success stories. What kind of initiatives, what kind of factors did you take into consideration? What were the challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome those challenges? Because this is very important for everybody. I'm sure there's a lot to learn for anybody who listens to this podcast and hears out other people's success stories. So I would love to hear from you. Please email me on info@podyourheartout.com. You can also visit www.podyourheartout.com. Alternatively, you can also reply to any of the social media posts or leave a comment there, and I'd be more than happy to come back and see what you have to say. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, I look forward to hearing from you.